The first time I saw Reed Grid Cooperative listed on a $38 million city contract, I was sitting in the second row of my sister's vocational academy with a cup of burnt coffee in my hands. I had never signed a contract. Dana stood beneath the projector screen, introducing Victor Lang as if she were unveiling the future. Behind her, an animated map of Pittsburgh showed backup lines spreading across the riverfront district. Victor promised 300 jobs, paid apprenticeships, and enough stored power to keep the area running through storms. People applauded because it was a good promise. I wanted it to be true. My sister Celeste had spent 6 years keeping the Academy's electrical program alive. A project like this could change the neighborhood. Then the screen changed. A row of official partners appeared beneath Lang Urban Infrastructure. Our logo was third from the left, 2 copper lines crossing inside a square. Tasha Green and I had drawn it on a stained napkin when our cooperative had 4 workers and 1 borrowed van. Now 23 worker owners depended on that name. No one in that auditorium had permission to use it. Noah leaned toward me. "You didn't tell me you were part of this." My 19-year-old son studied electrical engineering. He stared at the map with rare excitement. "I'm not," I said. Victor pointed toward our logo. "Reed Grid will provide a local field team under our supervision," he said. Their community experience made them an ideal inclusion partner. The city awarded extra points to bidders who committed work to local, worker-owned companies. On a contract that size, our name could be worth millions in scoring advantage. Across the aisle, Tasha looked directly at me. I stood. Public conflict never came naturally to me. After a failed business and a divorce, I learned to measure every sentence. "Mr. Lang, when did Reed Grid authorize that partnership?" The room went quiet. Victor smiled. "Malcolm Reed, founder, electrician, and one of this district's strongest local voices." I asked when we authorized it. Dana's expression tightened. During our marriage, she called that my workshop voice, the tone I used when something was wired wrong. Victor rested one hand on the podium. "We had preliminary conversations during development. Some paperwork may still be moving between teams. We had one introductory call 9 months ago," I said. "No scope, no price, no agreement." Dana raised her microphone. "This is why major projects require professional coordination. Operating teams are not always aware of every administrative step." I heard the old judgment beneath her words. "Malcolm does not see the whole picture. Malcolm reacts too late." Victor gave a soft laugh. "I'm happy to review everything privately after the presentation. I want the package submitted to the city." His smile held, but the warmth disappeared. "Of course." The presentation continued, but I barely heard it. Substations appeared where soil tests had not been completed. Construction dates rolled past faster than permits could clear. Students photographed the plans. If I challenged the bid, the academy could lose the project for another year. If I stayed quiet, Victor would use our name to win it. When the lights came up, Dana reached me first. "You could have handled that privately. He used my company in public. Our son was sitting beside you. That did not make the logo authorized." She looked toward Noah, who was speaking with Victor beside a model of the training lab. "Victor can open doors for him," she said quietly. "Do not close them because you feel overlooked." I walked away before I said something I could not take back. At the procurement table, I requested every subcontractor commitment and local participation form filed under Reed Grid's name. Tasha followed me into the hallway. "You're doing it again," she said. "Doing what?" "Trying to be so reasonable nobody can accuse you of being angry." "I need proof." "You need to say they stole our name." "I'll say it when I can prove it." By 8 that night, we were back at the cooperative office above an old plumbing warehouse. Rain tapped the windows while Tasha downloaded the bid files. I searched our contract archive. There was nothing. At 8:43, Tasha stopped scrolling. "Malcolm." On her screen was a 12-page subcontract between Lang Urban Infrastructure and Reed Grid Cooperative. It committed our workers, vehicles, insurance, and equipment to the riverfront project for 18 months. At the bottom was my electronic signature. The agreement was dated March 14th. I remembered that day because a hospital transformer had failed 60 miles north of the city. I had spent 16 hours inside a locked utility yard, and my phone had been sealed in the supervisor's office. Tasha enlarged the signature. It looked exactly like mine, except I had never put it there. Tasha printed 2 copies and laid them beside one of our real subcontracts. The differences were small enough to fool someone outside Reed Grid. Our current forms carried the cooperative's Penn Avenue address. The false one used the warehouse we had left 3 years earlier. Its insurance language came from an expired policy. Then Tasha reached the equipment schedule. They listed Unit 6. Unit 6 was a trenching machine we had sold in Ohio 2 years ago. 2 other serial numbers belonged to cable pullers destroyed in a warehouse flood. Whoever built that document had access to old records, but not our current operation. I studied the signature again. It was clean and centered. My real signature tilted downward because an old wrist injury made the last stroke drag on a screen. The forgery looked like me only from a distance. The next morning, Victor's office sent an invitation. Private contract review. No counsel necessary. Tasha read the last line twice. That means bring counsel. I'm going to hear what he says. Victor's headquarters occupied the upper floors of a renovated steel building. His conference room had glass walls and a table long enough to make every visitor feel temporary. Dana sat on his right, a blank legal pad in front of her. Victor slid me a folder. Inside was a new subcontract. The address was correct. The obsolete equipment had disappeared. The payment was more than Reed Grid had earned during our best year. $8.4 million over 18 months, he said. You replaced the forged document. I corrected an administrative mistake. My signature was not an administrative mistake. A junior employee prepared a commitment before final confirmation. Sign this version, and the problem disappears. For you, for everyone, your workers get their largest contract. The academy gets apprenticeships. The district gets backup power. Dana spoke. This is a real opportunity, Malcolm. Did you know my company was submitted? I knew Reed Grid was included. Victor said the details had been handled. By whom? Victor tapped the folder. We are here to solve a problem, not conduct a trial. The offer was designed carefully. If I signed, the new agreement could become the final version of an existing negotiation. The false signature could be dismissed as a drafting error. If I refused, Victor could say a small contractor endangered a public project over paperwork. I closed the folder. No, Victor did not threaten me directly. Men with his influence rarely used words that could be repeated later. Public confidence is fragile, he said. Questions about authorization become questions about insurance and capacity. The city might delay the award. Your sister's students could wait another year. That would be the result of your document. It becomes the result of how loudly you misunderstand it. I left the unsigned contract on his table. Dana caught me near the elevator. You are turning a correctable mistake into a war. Someone copied my signature, and Victor offered your cooperative more work than you could win alone. There it was, not an answer, a calculation. You think we need him. I think 23 people depend on a company that is always one bad quarter from trouble. Victor can give you stability. He can give us money. That is not the same thing. Her face tightened. You resented him before you saw the document. I met him yesterday. You resented what he represented. Resources, access, a plan bigger than repairing one building at a time. The elevator opened. Tell Noah I'll call tonight. Do not drag him into this. I'm trying not to. That was true, but it was also an excuse. Noah had watched his mother work in polished offices while I came home in work boots and answered payroll questions at the kitchen table. Victor had offered him a design center tour and hinted at a summer internship. I could already hear Dana's version. His father rejected an $8 million contract because his pride was hurt. So I did not report the forged signature that day. Instead, Tasha and I preserved everything. We copied payroll records, union dispatches, insurance certificates, vehicle GPS histories, equipment titles, job logs, email archives, and our digital signature files. One copy went to an encrypted server. Another went onto a drive Tasha placed in the cooperative's safe deposit box. I sent procurement a preservation notice for every document submitted under Reed Grid's name. I did not accuse Victor of fraud. I stated that authorization was disputed and no related record should be altered or destroyed. Tasha watched me send it. You are still leaving him room to call this confusion. I'm leaving us room to prove it isn't. By Friday, Victor's managers were calling our suppliers for delivery dates. One contacted 2 electricians about a scheduling meeting. Another requested fleet insurance certificates as if Reed Grid already answered to Lang Urban Infrastructure. Some members wanted me to expose Victor immediately. Others saw the number in his offer and wondered whether I was protecting the company or my pride. On Monday morning, a city compliance officer requested certified payroll support for preliminary fieldwork. 14 electricians were listed under Reed Grid. I knew everyone our cooperative had ever paid. 7 names belonged to strangers. The 8th belonged to Leon Mercer, one of our founding members. Leon had been dead for 18 months. Leon's name stayed on the screen while the office went quiet. Tasha opened the payroll sheet. Someone had assigned him 48 hours at a riverfront site the previous month. They had not only borrowed our logo, they were manufacturing a workforce inside our company. We report this now, Tasha said. I know, you keep saying that, then finding another reason to wait. 7 names belonged to strangers. 6 belonged to real Reed Grid members attached to work they never performed. The 8th belonged to a man we had buried 18 months earlier. The first anonymous safety complaint reached the city that afternoon. It accused one crew of bypassing a lockout procedure at a school renovation. An inspector shut the electrical room down while he reviewed every panel and report. We passed. It did not matter. A second complaint stopped an apartment project. A third claimed an apprentice had been left alone near energized equipment. None mentioned Victor. They came through different channels and used enough technical language to sound legitimate. By Thursday, 12 Reed Grid workers were standing outside locked job sites with their tools. We crossed to a diner when the rain started. On the television, Victor toured the vocational academy with city officials. He promised a path into skilled work while a statement beneath the footage said his consortium remained committed to transparency despite confusion involving an unnamed local vendor. I recognized Dana's wording. I told them we were challenging the inspections and would cover their hours as long as possible. The bank called the next morning. Our operating line had been placed under review because of a municipal contract dispute. Someone had represented Reed Grid as a contractor with unresolved labor and equipment obligations. The banker said the risk department needed answers before releasing more credit. Payroll was due in 9 days. 2 long-term clients paused new work. One told Tasha he had heard I accepted an advance from Victor, failed to provide workers, then demanded more money. The lie traveled because it sounded possible. Reed Grid was small, Victor was respected. I had rejected enough money to change every worker owner's life. That evening, Tasha placed the unsigned contract on my desk. Sign it, she said. I want to hear you explain why you won't. Because it turns a forged agreement into a negotiation. Then stop acting like this is about keeping everybody calm. 3 worker owners had asked whether the board could remove me from daily authority until the dispute was resolved. I had helped each of them buy their first ownership share. Now they were deciding whether I was the danger. If you keep information from people whose jobs are at risk, Tasha said, they will fill the silence themselves. Noah did exactly that. He came to my house after class. Mom says Victor offered to fix this. She should not be discussing contracts with you. She said you walked away from $8 million. That offer came after they used our name. So make them correct the paperwork and take the work. It is not that simple. Nothing is simple with you because you never tell anybody the whole story. I could have shown him Leon's name in the false payroll. But Dana worked for Victor, and Noah trusted her. I told myself I was protecting him from choosing between us. The truth was uglier. I was afraid he would choose her. The project could fund the academy, he said. Victor thinks at city scale. Maybe you're angry because he can do what Reed Grid can't. I said nothing, and my silence made it look true. After he left, Celeste called. If that project is dirty, I do not want it built through my school. If I challenge it now, your students may lose it. And if you stay quiet, what are they supposed to learn? I had believed restraint contained damage. Now it was spreading it. The next morning, I filed a formal identity fraud complaint with municipal procurement. Inspector Lena Ortiz met Tasha and me at City Hall. She listened as we explained the forged signature, obsolete equipment, false workers, and Leon's name. When we finished, she closed the folder. This is serious. It is also not proven. We gave you the documents. You proved inaccurate records were submitted. To prove intentional fraud, I need to know who created them, who approved them, and who knew they were false when certified. Victor offered me a replacement contract. That does not prove he ordered the original. Tasha leaned forward. So a dead electrician can still be a clerical error? Ortiz did not react. Preserve every original. Document every contact. Do not alter files or make public accusations. If the consortium is doing what you believe, pressure may cause someone inside it to make a mistake. And if we cannot make payroll? I investigate procurement. I cannot protect your credit line. That night, I sat alone with Victor's corrected contract. One signature could reopen the bank line and keep every apprentice employed. It could also let Victor claim Reed Grid had always intended to participate. I uncapped a pen. My phone vibrated. The message came from an unknown number. My name is Owen Park. I was a junior estimator at Lang Urban Infrastructure. I think I know what they did with your company. Please do not call me. A photograph followed. It showed an internal spreadsheet titled Local Participation Conversion. Read Grid appeared beside 3 companies I had never heard of. Across the row were labor hours, vendor credits, and projected payments totaling millions of dollars. A second message appeared. They fired me when I questioned the numbers. I do not know who I can trust. Owen would not meet at our office, City Hall, or anywhere with cameras facing the entrance. He chose a union training center closed for renovation. Tasha and I entered after dark. Owen was maybe 28. He kept his coat on and placed his phone inside a metal cabinet before sitting down. I did not take a complete file, he said. I saved pieces because I thought somebody would eventually ask why the numbers change. He had worked on vendor estimates for Lang Urban Infrastructure. The process began with projections, companies Victor hoped to recruit, workers he expected to hire, equipment his team might lease. Before the bid deadline, those projections became completed commitments. Names came from old rosters. Equipment photos were relabeled, inspection numbers moved between sites. Vendors that had only attended meetings appeared as signed subcontractors. Who ordered it? I asked. Nobody writes that down. They say the totals need to become compliant. That was not enough for Inspector Ortiz. Owen showed us part of the conversion sheet. Read Grid's row carried our forged subcontract number, more than 11,000 labor hours, and charges tied to obsolete equipment. 3 other companies appeared beside us. 2 had no active phone numbers. The third was registered to a mailbox outside Harrisburg. Why were you fired? I asked why inactive and deceased workers were still counted. My access disappeared the next morning. Tasha asked whether he would speak to Ortiz. He shook his head. If Victor learns I am cooperating, I will never estimate another public project. I promised nothing I could not provide. Every file required independent verification. He agreed to 1 meeting with his attorney present. Owen's spreadsheet gave us a direction. It was not proof by itself. Over the next 12 days, we rebuilt the paper trail from records Victor did not control. Union records showed none of the claimed electricians had been assigned there. Vehicle logs placed our trucks at other jobs. Weather reports showed flooding during hours Victor claimed outdoor trenching continued. The strongest contradiction was a substation near the old freight yards. Victor's documents claimed 30 electricians installed control cabinets and feeder cable there during a night shift. Ortiz obtained access for an inspection. Dust covered the floor in one unbroken layer. There were no boot prints, cable scraps, fresh anchors, or new cabinets. The security panel showed the building had not been opened on the claimed date. Victor had reported a full crew working inside an empty room. Ortiz photographed everything. This supports fabrication. It still does not establish who approved the final submission. Then Noah called. He had borrowed Dana's tablet and found 2 versions of the consortium's statement. In the first draft, Dana had written, "Read Grid has not authorized participation. Public material should describe the cooperative as a prospective partner until written approval is received." A later version approved through her account said Read Grid was fully committed. Did Mom know? Noah asked. I told him only what the drafts proved. He sent the files to Ortiz and asked me not to contact Dana until he had left her apartment. Dana came to my house that night. She admitted writing the warning but claimed she had not known about the false payroll or equipment records. He told me you would sign once the price was final. And after I refused? He said you were posturing. You removed the warning. 2 years earlier, after medical bills and a failed investment, Dana had taken $32,000 from Noah's education account. She had replaced $26,000. Victor found the withdrawal during her promotion review. He used the remaining $6,000 in her false financial disclosure to control her. He said the board would learn everything if I embarrassed the consortium, she said. Noah would know I used his money. So you helped him use my company. I approved a statement. I did not invent workers. You knew there was no contract. She said she believed the project would succeed, I would eventually sign, Noah would receive opportunities, and the missing money would be restored before he needed it. She had convinced herself that a good result could erase the choices used to reach it. Will you tell Ortiz? She did not answer. Instead, she asked me to warn Victor before the final certification. If this collapses publicly, hundreds of legitimate workers could lose jobs. Victor created that risk. You can still give him a chance to correct it. She still expected me to absorb the damage so everyone else could continue. I refused. 2 days later, Owen received a letter accusing him of stealing trade secrets and threatening legal action. He stopped answering Tasha's messages. She thought we had lost him. Ortiz reminded us that his files were only leads. She was obtaining the same records through official requests. Then she showed me the final compliance schedule. Before the award hearing, Victor would have to personally certify the subcontract approvals, payroll summaries, equipment logs, and local participation totals. If we confronted him early, he could withdraw the false pages and blame a junior employee. If we waited, he would place his own name beneath the numbers. Let him certify them, I said. Ortiz's expression hardened. This is an investigation, Mr. Reed, not a trap you control. I understand, but I also understood that silence and patience were no longer the same thing. Victor moved first. The consortium announced that the contract hearing would be televised because of alleged misinformation from a former subcontractor. Then a formal witness notice arrived. Victor intended to call me himself. His public statement claimed I had withdrawn from a valid partnership after demanding more money and that the hearing would test my accusations under oath. He was not preparing to defend the forged contract. He was preparing to put me on trial for refusing it. The hearing room was full. City staff filled the first rows, reporters lined the back wall, and a camera faced the witness table. Noah sat beside Celeste. Tasha waited across the aisle. Dana sat directly behind Victor. Victor opened with charts promising jobs, apprenticeships, and backup power. Community leaders praised the plan. By the time he finished, the room understood what the city could lose if his consortium was removed. Then he turned to me. Mr. Reed was invited to participate from the beginning, Victor said. After receiving an improved offer, he demanded additional compensation. When we declined, he began calling ordinary draft documents fraud. The corrected $8.4 million contract appeared on the screen. He did not show the forged one first. A council member asked why I rejected it. Because it arrived after my company had already been submitted without authorization. Victor's attorney asked about the introductory call 9 months earlier. Yes, the project was discussed. Then negotiations occurred. A discussion is not a subcontract. The questions came faster. Why had I waited? Was Reed Grid unstable? Did I resent Victor's scale? Each question contained enough truth to sound reasonable. Yes, our credit line was reviewed. No, Reed Grid could not lead a $38 million project alone. Yes, I delayed filing while we verified the documents. No, I never demanded more money. After my testimony, Victor signed the final certification. He confirmed that the local participation commitments, payroll summaries, equipment schedules, and subcontract approvals were accurate. The clerk asked whether he understood that false certification could result in disqualification and investigation. I do, Victor said. Inspector Ortiz waited until his signature entered the record, then requested permission to present the city's findings. Victor's attorney objected. Ortiz said the evidence came through municipal records, vendor confirmations, subpoenas, and official inspections. The chair allowed her to continue. Tasha identified Reed Grid's 23 worker owners, current vehicles, insurance, and equipment. She explained that Victor's schedule listed machines sold 2 years earlier and payroll entries for people who had never worked for us. His attorney called the differences outdated information. Tasha opened Leon Mercer's record. He helped establish Reed Grid, she said. He died 18 months before the hours reported under his name. The room changed after that. Owen entered through a side door with his attorney. Ortiz had kept his appearance quiet after the legal threat. He explained the conversion process. Projected vendors entered a planning sheet. Before submission, staff were ordered to treat expected participation as committed participation. Worker names, equipment details, and inspection numbers were reused to complete the totals. Victor called him a dismissed employee who had mishandled confidential information. Ortiz did not defend Owen. She displayed records obtained independently from the city and union. The first map showed Victor's claimed activity, with Reed Grid vehicles at substations and trench sites. The second showed the actual GPS records. Most of our vehicles had never left our yard. 2 were at a hospital repair. 1 was in Ohio. Another sat in a mechanic's shop without a transmission. Access logs showed that several claimed crews never entered the sites. Weather records contradicted the outdoor work. Photographs from the freight yard substation showed untouched dust where 30 electricians supposedly completed a night shift. Victor blamed an outside consultant. Ortiz displayed the forged subcontracts metadata. The file had been created inside Victor's executive document account and revised after I rejected the corrected agreement. Then she produced an internal instruction from the consortium's server. Victor had written, "Convert projected participation into committed totals before final submission. We cannot lose scoring because local vendors are slow to execute. That refers to confirmed verbal commitments," he said. "You controlled the submission process?" A council member asked. I supervised it. You approved the totals? Yes, but I relied on my staff. His pride would not let him claim ignorance without surrendering his authority. Dana was called next. The city attorney showed her the two versions of the public statement. Did you write that ReadGrid had not authorized participation? Yes. Was that accurate? Yes. Did you tell Mr. Lang written authorization had not been received? Her hands tightened around the table. Yes. She denied creating the forged subcontract or knowing about the false payroll. There were other things I could have exposed about Dana. No's money, Victor's pressure, why she removed the warning. None were necessary to prove what happened to ReadGrid. When the chair asked whether I wanted to add anything, I said no. The council discussed postponing the award. One member argued the project was too important to lose and the irregularities could be corrected through oversight. Another questioned whether Owen's files were legally usable. Ortiz answered with evidence Victor could not dismiss: subpoenaed emails, server metadata, access logs, vendor confirmations, GPS histories, and the certification he had signed less than an hour earlier. The council recessed. Victor remained at his table, surrounded by attorneys. Dana sat alone behind him. Noah crossed the room and stood beside Tasha, but he did not come to me. 43 minutes later, the council returned. Lang Urban Infrastructure was disqualified. Pending city payments were frozen. The record was referred to the Inspector General and District Attorney for review of procurement fraud, falsified business records, and retaliation against a reporting vendor. Victor was not arrested. No one declared him guilty. But every camera recorded the moment the contract disappeared from his control. Reporters surrounded me in the hallway, asking whether I felt vindicated and whether ReadGrid would receive the project. Before I answered, my phone rang. It was the bank. The risk officer said the decision supported my complaint, but our credit line would remain frozen until the wider investigation confirmed ReadGrid had no liability for the submitted payroll and equipment claims. We were the ones they used, I said. I understand. The review is not complete. Through the glass doors, I could see Tasha waiting with our workers. We had stopped Victor from taking the contract. We still did not know whether ReadGrid would survive long enough to see the next one. The bank kept our credit line frozen for another 7 weeks. Winning the hearing did not pay our invoices, restore the projects we had lost, or erase our name from the records Victor's team had created. Every false payroll entry had to be traced. Every equipment claim had to be separated from ReadGrid's real work. The worker owners met the morning after the hearing. No one celebrated. Tasha placed the numbers on the wall. We had enough cash for one full payroll and part of the next. 3 projects were still suspended. Insurance wanted additional documentation. Our suppliers had shortened their payment terms. I offered to step aside while the board reviewed my decisions. Leon's old partner, Curtis Bell, spoke first. You should have told us sooner, he said. You decided what we could handle without asking. He was right. Then he voted against removing me. The others did the same, but the decision came with conditions. No executive decision involving litigation, credit, payroll risk, or public contracts could be held by one person again. Tasha received equal authority over records and compliance. A 3-member worker committee gained access to every major contract. I had protected ReadGrid from Victor while repeating a smaller version of the same mistake, believing control was justified because I trusted my own intentions. The cooperative survived because its members chose to keep it alive. 11 worker owners approved temporary capital contributions. 2 delayed distributions they had been counting on. We took smaller repair jobs that Victor would never have noticed, rewiring a grocery store, replacing panels in a church basement, installing backup power at a neighborhood clinic. 3 former clients returned after Inspector Ortiz confirmed that ReadGrid was being treated as a reporting victim, not a participant in the fraud. It was not a miracle. It was overtime, smaller checks, and people deciding the company was worth more than one difficult quarter. Victor's collapse moved faster. Within 10 days, 2 major partners withdrew from his consortium. The board placed him on leave. He resigned before they could remove him publicly. 3 months later, prosecutors charged Victor and 2 executives with procurement fraud, falsification of business records, and conspiracy related to the subcontractor submissions. The retaliation complaints remained under separate review. Those were charges, not convictions. His attorneys denied intentional wrongdoing and blamed a failed compliance process. But the image he had built no longer protected him. Every public promise now appeared beside the signature he placed beneath records he knew were disputed. Dana lost her position the week after the hearing. She cooperated with investigators and turned over emails, drafts, and internal messages. Prosecutors did not accuse her of creating the forged contract or payroll files. Her approval of false public statements still brought professional consequences and a civil review. She came to the cooperative office one evening after everyone else had left. "I am not asking you to tell me it was all Victor," she said. It wasn't. She had repaid the remaining $6,000 to Noah's education account by selling her car and withdrawing from a retirement fund. "That fixes the balance," I said. "Not the choice." "I know." She apologized for using Reed Grid's name, for removing her warning, and for helping Victor make me appear dishonest. She did not ask me to protect her from Noah or the investigators. That mattered, but it was not forgiveness. Some damage has to be acknowledged before anyone earns the right to discuss repair. Noah made his own decision. He told Dana he would continue speaking to her, but he would not accept money, career introductions, or explanations that blamed Victor for choices she made herself. Then he came to my house. "You kept evidence from me because you thought I would choose Mom." Yes, I might have believed her at first. I know, but you did not give me the chance to decide. I told him I had confused silence with protection. I had been so afraid of making him carry the conflict that I left him carrying uncertainty instead. He did not forgive me in a single conversation either. He started coming to the cooperative once a week. At first, he worked at a folding table reviewing equipment logs. By summer, he asked Tasha for a field position. "You are an engineering student," she told him. "Out there, you start as an apprentice. That is why I'm asking you instead of my father." She made him arrive at 6, carry his own tools, and redo every label he placed crooked. 6 months after the hearing, the city issued a new request for proposals. The rules had changed. Payroll had to be independently verified. Local subcontractors received direct access to every commitment submitted under their names. Equipment records required current ownership confirmation. Retaliation against a reporting vendor triggered automatic review. Reed Grid did not bid as the project leader. We joined a qualified regional engineering team with enough financing and staff to complete the work honestly. The revised plan preserved the neighborhood backup system and added a protected apprenticeship program operated jointly by the unions and Celeste's Academy. Before the rebid closed, Victor's former consortium offered Reed Grid a private settlement. The amount would have restored our credit immediately and covered most of our losses. The agreement required confidentiality. We would have been prohibited from discussing the forged records, the retaliation, or the weaknesses in the old contracting system. The worker owners voted. We rejected it. The recovery took longer because of that choice. But the public record remained available to every worker and small contractor who needed to understand how the scheme had operated. The first apprenticeship agreement was signed inside the Academy's new training lab. No cameras were invited. Celeste stood near the breaker panel. Noah waited with the first group of apprentices. Tasha supervised as they energized the practice backup grid. The overhead lights came on one section at a time. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Each circuit held because someone had checked the work before moving to the next one. I signed the agreement at the bottom of the final page. My real signature leaned slightly downward at the end. Then I handed the pen to the youngest worker owner in Reed Grid. Victor had treated our name like a tool he could borrow. Now the people who carried it knew exactly who it belonged to.